My name is Sarah Hayes. I'm 34 years old, divorced, and the mother of 6-year-old twins. For the first time in over a year, I thought my life had finally stopped collapsing. The divorce from Trevor had been brutal. Months of mediation, passive-aggressive emails, and courtroom silences heavy with resentment. But we'd survived it. We had a legally binding custody agreement, clear boundaries, designated pickup days, shared holidays mapped out months in advance. Structure. I clung to that word like a life raft. That Tuesday afternoon, I was meal prepping chicken and rice for the week ahead, standing barefoot in my kitchen with a wooden spoon in my hand, when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. "Miss Hayes?" a woman asked when I answered. Her voice was polite. Too polite. "This is Angela from Little Explorers Learning Center. Could you possibly come in tomorrow morning around 8? There's something we need to discuss." My stomach dropped instantly. "Is everything okay?" I asked. "Did something happen to Lily or Mason?" There was a pause. 3 seconds too long. "The children are perfectly fine," she said quickly. "Don't worry, it's just, well, there's been some confusion regarding our pickup authorization protocols." Confusion. I gripped the edge of my countertop, knuckles whitening. What kind of confusion? The only people authorized to pick up my children are myself and their father, I said slowly, on his custody days. "Yes," Angela replied, her tone shifting. "That's exactly what we need to clarify." "No," I snapped. "Tell me now." Another pause. "Mrs. Patterson, your former mother-in-law, has been picking up Lily and Mason." The wooden spoon slipped from my fingers and clattered onto the tile, marinara splashing across my sneakers. "Excuse me?" I whispered. "She's collected them several times over the past few weeks," Angela continued. "She informed our staff she had your authorization." I couldn't breathe. "She is not authorized," I said. "She has never been authorized. You cannot just hand over children because someone sounds confident." "Miss Hayes, please," Angela said gently. "That's why we need to meet." After I hung up, I stood there shaking, staring at the wall like it might explain how my reality had just cracked open. 18 minutes later, my best friend Vanessa burst through my door. "She's been taking them," I said the moment she saw my face. "Behind my back." Vanessa froze. "Who?" "Patricia, Trevor's mother. She's been picking up my kids from daycare." Vanessa's expression hardened. "How is that even possible?" "That's what I want to know." "Have you called Trevor?" "Not yet." Vanessa grabbed my phone and shoved it into my hand. "Call him. Now." He answered on the 5th ring. "Hey, Sarah," he said distractedly. "I'm walking into a meeting." "Did you know your mother has been picking up the twins from daycare?" I asked. Silence. "Yeah," he finally said. "Sometimes she helps out." My voice went sharp. "She's been doing it on my custody days." "Mom said you knew," he replied, "that you worked it out with her." I laughed, a short, broken sound. "When have your mother and I ever worked anything out?" "Don't be dramatic," Trevor said. "She's their grandmother." "That doesn't make it legal," I said. "We're meeting the daycare tomorrow, 8 a.m. "I can't. This is about our children's safety." He sighed. "Fine." That night, I barely slept. I called my older sister, Monica, who worked as a family advocate. She didn't hesitate. "Document everything," she said. "This could involve protective services." The next morning, I arrived early, notebook in hand, recorder running. Trevor was already there, irritated, polished, distant. Inside the director's office, Karen Foster slid a folder across the desk. "Mrs. Patterson has picked up the twins 8 times in 6 weeks. 8. "These signatures are forged," I said, my hands shaking. Trevor stared. "That's not my signature." My phone buzzed. "Vanessa. She tried to register the twins at Riverside Elementary," she said. "Claimed guardianship." The room went silent. I called Patricia and put it on speaker. She answered sweetly. "Sarah, why have you been taking my children?" I asked. "I was helping," she said smoothly. "They prefer my house anyway." "And the forged documents?" "I signed so they wouldn't give me a hard time." Trevor stood abruptly. "Mom, that's illegal." "Oh, please." "That's enough," he said. When he hung up, I knew something irreversible had begun. This wasn't about daycare anymore. This was about control, and she wasn't done. I didn't feel victorious walking out of Little Explorers that morning. I felt hollow, like someone had reached inside my chest and scooped something essential out without bothering to stitch me back together. 8 times. That number kept echoing in my head as I buckled Lily and Mason into their car seats later that afternoon. 8 separate mornings when I'd kissed them goodbye, trusting the routine, believing the systems I'd carefully chosen were protecting them. While Patricia walked in, smiled, signed a fake name, and walked out with my children. Behind my back, I watched Lily chatter about finger painting while Mason argued with his dinosaur over whose turn it was to sit in the cup holder. And all I could think was how close I'd come to never knowing. If the daycare hadn't called, if Patricia had pushed just a little harder, if she'd been more patient. That night, I spread everything out across my dining table. Emails from the daycare, screenshots of Angela's follow-up messages, copies of the forged authorization forms Karen had reluctantly emailed me once I demanded them in writing. The signatures made my stomach turn. They weren't even good forgeries. The curves wrong, the pressure inconsistent. Someone who thought confidence mattered more than accuracy. Someone who'd never been told no and accepted it. Trevor called around 9. I didn't know, he said immediately, like he was trying to outrun his own guilt. I swear, Sarah, I thought she was just helping on my days. She picked them up on mine, I replied flatly, and she forged both our signatures. There was silence on the line this time. He couldn't brush that away. She wouldn't, he started, then stopped himself. I mean, she wouldn't think it was a big deal. That's the problem, I said. She doesn't think the rules apply to her. He sighed heavily. What do you want to do? The question irritated me more than it should have. I'm already doing it, I said. I'm documenting everything. And tomorrow, I'm calling Monica again. She's your sister, he said carefully. She's not neutral. No, I replied. She's professional. And she understands what happens when adults teach children to keep secrets. That landed. He didn't argue. The next morning, Monica met me at her office downtown. Her tone changed the moment I showed her the forms. This is serious, she said, removing her glasses. Forgery alone is bad, but combined with unauthorized pickups, this establishes a pattern. A pattern of what? I asked, even though part of me already knew. Control, she said. An escalation. She pulled out a yellow legal pad and started listing dates. 8 pickups, attempted school registration, deception of childcare staff. And now we need to find out what she's been telling the twins. The thought made my chest tighten. I don't want to traumatize them, I said quietly. Protecting them isn't traumatizing them, Monica replied. Letting this continue would be. That afternoon, Karen from Little Explorers called again. Her voice was strained now, no longer calm, no longer rehearsed. We conducted an internal review, she said. Several staff members admitted Mrs. Patterson pressured them. She'd wait until the front desk was busy. She implied legal consequences if they questioned her. So you let her bully you, I said. There was a pause. Yes? I closed my eyes. Effective immediately, Karen continued. We've implemented temporary ID verification, and Mrs. Patterson is permanently banned from the facility. Not good enough, I said. I want a full written timeline. Names, times, who approved what. You'll have it by tomorrow. After I hung up, I sat on the couch and stared at the wall, while Mason climbed onto my lap and Lily curled beside me. Mommy, why don't we see Grandma Patricia anymore? Lily asked casually, like she was asking about the weather. My throat closed. She's taking some time to learn better boundaries, I said carefully. What's boundaries? Mason asked. It means understanding where you stop and someone else starts, I said, and respecting that. He considered this, then nodded solemnly, like not touching Lily's toys without asking. Exactly like that. That evening, Trevor came over to talk in person. He looked exhausted, less polished, less sure of himself. I talked to my mom, he said, sitting across from me. She says you're overreacting. I laughed softly, without humor. Of course she does. She claims you're trying to erase her from the kids' lives. I'm trying to stop her from making decisions that aren't hers to make, I replied. Those are not the same thing. He rubbed his face. She cried. Said you've always been jealous of her relationship with them. That's manipulation, I said gently. And she's been doing it to you your entire life. He didn't deny it. I just never thought she'd turn it on the kids, he said quietly. She already has, I replied. The question is whether we stop it now or let it get worse. He looked up at me then. Really looked. What do you need from me? He asked. A united front, I said. No private deals, no excuses, no minimizing. He nodded slowly. Okay. The next day, Monica forwarded me something that made my blood run cold. Screenshots. Text messages Patricia had sent Lily from Trevor's old iPad, the one he'd let her keep for video calls. Don't tell Mommy about our special talks. Some things are just between us. I stared at the words until my vision blurred. She's grooming them, Monica said bluntly over the phone, not sexually, but psychologically, teaching secrecy, undermining you. I felt something harden inside my chest. This was no longer about misunderstandings. This was war, and Patricia had already chosen her side. I didn't sleep at all the night Monica sent me those screenshots. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lily's careful handwriting as she practiced spelling words, Mason's serious little face when he tried to explain something important, and over it all, Patricia's voice, syrupy and smiling, telling them what not to say. Don't tell Mommy, that's just between us. There is nothing more terrifying than realizing someone has been quietly rewriting your children's reality while you weren't looking. By morning, fear had burned itself into something sharper, resolve. I picked up the phone and called Trevor before I could second-guess myself. We need to talk, I said the moment he answered. I know, he replied. His voice sounded raw. I saw the messages Monica sent. Then you understand why this can't be handled quietly anymore. There was a pause. Yeah, he said. I do. We met that afternoon at Monica's office. The conference table was covered in documents now. Timelines, screenshots, daycare records, school registration attempts, evidence. Monica stood at the whiteboard, writing dates in thick black marker. This is escalation, she said, tapping the board. Unauthorized pickups, forged signatures, attempted school enrollment, secret keeping with minors. Trevor leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. She tried to register them for first grade, he said slowly, without telling either of us. Yes, Monica replied, which means she was positioning herself as a decision maker, possibly a replacement. My chest tightened. She told the school I was unfit. Trevor's head snapped toward me. She said, what? I nodded, that I work too much, that the daycare is substandard, that I can't properly focus on their development. Monica folded her arms. Classic justification. Demonize the parent, elevate herself. Trevor shook his head, a hollow laugh escaping him. She's been doing this my whole life. I looked at him then, not as my ex-husband, not as a co-parent, but as a child who had never been allowed to grow up without someone pulling the strings. When you were a kid, I asked gently, did she ever let you make mistakes? He swallowed. No. Then why would she start now? We decided, together, to confront her. Not alone, not emotionally, not without witnesses. That evening, we sat in Monica's office and put Patricia on speakerphone. She answered on the second ring. Sarah, she said warmly, what a surprise. You're on speaker, I said. Trevor is here. So is Monica Chen, a family advocate. There was the faintest hitch in her breathing before she recovered. Well, she said, this feels unnecessary. Why did you try to register Lily and Mason at Riverside Elementary? I asked. I was exploring options, she replied smoothly. That school has a gifted program. You told them you had guardianship, Trevor said sharply. A pause. I assumed they'd need a point of contact, she said. Someone responsible. My hands curled into fists. I am their mother, and you work retail, Patricia shot back. You're stretched thin. Someone needs to think long-term. Monica leaned forward. Mrs. Patterson, did you or did you not present yourself as having legal authority over the children? I am their grandmother, Patricia snapped. Blood matters. Not legally, Monica replied calmly. And the forged authorization forms, I pressed. I signed them so the staff wouldn't give me a hard time, she said. It's not like I kidnapped them. You took them without permission, Trevor said. On days that weren't mine. You never told me it was a problem, she said quickly. Because you lied, he replied. You told me Sarah approved it. Well, I assumed that's not how consent works, I cut in. Her voice hardened. You've always been jealous of my relationship with them. I laughed then, not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. You taught my children to keep secrets from me, I said. Explain that. Silence. Trevor leaned forward. Mom? I just wanted special moments to stay special, she finally said. You interrogate children too much. That's grooming language, Monica said evenly. How dare you accuse me? This conversation is over, Trevor said, his voice suddenly firm. Do not contact the kids. Not directly, not through devices, not through daycare. You can't do that, Patricia hissed. I have rights. You have privileges, I said, and you abused them. She exploded then, her calm cracking. You think you're better than me? She shouted. You live in a cramped apartment and dump them at daycare, while I could give them stability, private school, proper discipline. Stop, Trevor said loudly. Just stop. You're choosing her over your own mother, Patricia screamed. No, he replied. I'm choosing my children. The line went dead. For a long moment, no one spoke. Monica exhaled slowly. She's going to escalate. I know, I said, and she did. 3 days later, Child Protective Services contacted me, not because I'd called them, but because Patricia had. She'd filed a report claiming neglect, claiming I was unstable, claiming the children were unsafe in my care. The CPS worker was professional, thorough, and apologetic. After reviewing the documentation, she closed the case within 48 hours. But the damage was done. Patricia wasn't trying to see the kids. She was trying to take them. That realization settled into my bones like ice. Trevor came over that night, sitting at my kitchen table long after the kids were asleep. I never thought she'd do this, he said quietly. She always has, I replied. You just weren't the target before. He nodded slowly. What happens now? I looked at the folder Monica had helped me assemble, thick with proof, dates, signatures, lies. Now, I said, we stop reacting and start protecting. Outside, the city hummed like nothing had changed. Inside, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Patricia had crossed a line she could never uncross, and I wasn't backing down. If Patricia thought calling CPS would scare me into silence, she miscalculated. It did the opposite. The CPS investigation closed quickly. Too quickly to give her the satisfaction she'd clearly been hoping for. But the experience stripped away any remaining illusion I'd been clinging to. This wasn't about misunderstandings or generational differences. This was about power. And Patricia did not handle losing it well. 2 days after the CPS case was officially closed, Monica called me early in the morning. She's not backing down, she said. She's been calling my office, demanding mediation, claiming parental alienation. I pressed my forehead against the kitchen cabinet, eyes closed. Of course she is. We need to meet, Monica continued. All of us, together. And this time, we document everything in real time. Trevor agreed immediately when I told him. That alone told me how far he'd come. The meeting was scheduled for the following afternoon at Monica's office. Neutral ground, witnesses present, no room for private spin. Patricia arrived exactly on time. She looked immaculate. Cream-colored blazer, gold jewelry, hair perfectly styled. The picture of a reasonable grandmother wronged by an ungrateful world. Her smile faltered the second she saw Trevor sitting beside me instead of across the room. What is this? She asked sharply. Why are you sitting there? Because we're presenting a united front, Trevor replied. Her eyes flicked to me, then back to him. You didn't tell me she'd be here. I didn't need to, he said. That was the moment I saw it. The panic, not loud, not dramatic. Just a brief crack in her composure. Monica gestured toward the chair across from us. Please sit down, Mrs. Patterson. I don't appreciate being treated like a criminal, Patricia said, but she sat. We're here, Monica began calmly, to discuss your repeated, unauthorized interactions with Lily and Mason. Unauthorized, Patricia scoffed. I am their grandmother. "Which does not grant you legal authority," Monica replied, "especially not to remove children from licensed childcare, forge parental signatures, attempt school registration, or instruct minors to keep secrets from their parents." Patricia turned to Trevor, voice trembling just enough to sound wounded. "Are you really letting them talk to me like this?" Trevor didn't look away. "Yes." Her face tightened. "I was trying to help." "No," I said evenly. "You were trying to control." Her head snapped toward me. "You've always resented me." "I resented you undermining me," I corrected. "Those are not the same thing." Monica slid printed screenshots across the table. "Can you explain these messages?" she asked. Patricia glanced down and for the first time truly lost her composure. "That's being taken out of context," she snapped. "I just wanted special moments with my grandchildren." "By telling them not to tell their parents?" Monica pressed. "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" Trevor asked quietly. She hesitated. Too long. "I don't approve of certain parenting choices," she said finally. "Children need structure, discipline, respect." "So you undermined us," Trevor said. "Someone had to." The words hung in the air like poison. Trevor stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "That's it." "Trevor," she began. "No," he cut her off. "You lied to me. You lied about Sarah. You lied to the daycare. You lied to the school. And you manipulated my children." She rose too, her voice sharp now. "You're weak. You always were, just like your father." The room went silent. Monica's voice turned icy. "Mrs. Patterson, control yourself." Patricia rounded on her. "You think you know my family?" "I know boundary violations when I see them," Monica replied, "and yours are severe." Patricia's mask shattered completely then. "This is all her fault," she screamed, pointing at me. "She turned you against me." "No," Trevor said, his voice low and steady. "You did that." Her mouth opened, then closed. She had no script for this. Monica stood. "This meeting is over. Effective immediately, you are to have no contact with the children without explicit written permission from both parents." "You can't do this," Patricia said wildly. "There are laws. I'll take you to court." "You're welcome to try," Monica replied. "But given the evidence, I strongly advise against it." Patricia grabbed her purse, shaking with rage. "You'll regret this." After she stormed out, Trevor sank back into his chair, head in his hands. "I didn't realize how much she controlled me," he said quietly, "until she lost it." "That's how manipulation works," I said. "It stays invisible until it doesn't." Monica gathered the documents. "She's going to file for grandparent visitation." "I know," I said. "And when she does," Trevor added, lifting his head, "I'll oppose it." For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something loosen in my chest. Not relief, alignment. Patricia had lost her grip, and she knew it. Patricia filed the petition exactly 5 days later. Emergency grandparent visitation. The words alone made my stomach churn when Monica forwarded me the paperwork. According to the filing, Patricia claimed she had an established, nurturing, and essential relationship with Lily and Mason, one that I was now maliciously severing out of spite. She painted herself as the victim. I was portrayed as unstable, vindictive, overwhelmed by work, and emotionally manipulative. Trevor was described as passive, confused, and misled by my influence. Reading it felt like stepping into an alternate reality where facts didn't matter, only who could perform innocence the most convincingly. "She's counting on emotion," Monica said calmly as we sat in her office, documents spread between us. "Judges see this all the time." "But they also see grandparents get visitation," I said. "What if—" "She's overplayed her hand," Monica interrupted, "and she's left a paper trail." Still, the night before court, fear crept in anyway. I lay awake listening to Lily's soft breathing through the baby monitor we still used out of habit. Mason had kicked his blankets off again, one leg dangling over the edge of the bed like gravity didn't apply to him. I stood in their doorway for a long time, wondering how someone could look at children that vulnerable and decide control mattered more than love. The courthouse smelled like disinfectant and old paper. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as we waited in the hallway outside the courtroom. Patricia sat across from us, immaculate as always, whispering to her attorney, a silver-haired man in an expensive suit who nodded gravely at everything she said. She didn't look at me. She didn't need to. She believed she was going to win. Christine, my attorney, leaned toward me. "Are you ready?" "As I'll ever be," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Inside the courtroom, Patricia's attorney spoke first. He painted a picture of a devoted grandmother who'd been unjustly cut off from her grandchildren after years of involvement. He talked about holidays, birthdays, school pickups, leaving out the words forged, unauthorized, and deceptive. He spoke warmly, slowly, confidently. Patricia dabbed at her eyes at precisely the right moments. When it was our turn, Christine didn't raise her voice. She didn't dramatize. She laid out facts like bricks. Forged authorization forms. 8 unauthorized daycare pickups. Attempted school registration without parental consent. Text messages instructing children to keep secrets. A CPS report initiated by Patricia and closed as unfounded. This is not a case about denying a loving grandmother access to her grandchildren, Christine said evenly. It is a case about establishing boundaries with someone who repeatedly and deliberately violated them. The judge, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and sharp eyes, listened without interruption. Then she turned to Trevor. "Mr. Patterson," she said, "you've submitted a statement supporting the mother's position. That is unusual." Trevor stood, clearing his throat. His hands shook slightly, but his voice didn't. "Your Honor, I initially defended my mother because I believed she was acting in good faith," he said. "But the evidence shows she lied to me, forged legal documents, and undermined our co-parenting arrangement. While I love her, her behavior has been inappropriate and potentially dangerous." Patricia gasped loudly. "Mr. Patterson," the judge continued, "are you aware that your mother instructed your children to keep secrets from you and their mother?" "Yes," Trevor replied. "And that's when I realized this wasn't about help. It was about control." The judge nodded slowly. Then she turned to me. "Miss Hayes," she said, "what outcome are you seeking?" I stood carefully, feeling every eye in the room on me. "Your Honor, I'm not trying to erase my children's grandmother from their lives," I said, "but I am trying to protect them. I believe supervised visitation, at most, is necessary until Mrs. Patterson can demonstrate respect for parental authority and legal boundaries." The judge reviewed the documents in silence. When she finally looked up, her expression had hardened. "Mrs. Patterson," she said, "your actions are deeply concerning." Patricia's attorney stood. "Your Honor." "Sit down," the judge said sharply. The courtroom went still. "Unauthorized removal of children from a licensed daycare," the judge continued. "Forged parental signatures. Attempted school enrollment without consent. Medical appointments without parental knowledge. And instructing minors to keep secrets from their parents." Patricia shifted in her seat. "These are not the actions of a loving grandmother acting in the children's best interests," the judge said. "These are the actions of someone who believes rules do not apply to her." Patricia stood suddenly. "I was just trying to help." "Sit down," the judge ordered, "or I will hold you in contempt." Patricia sank back into her chair, trembling with fury. The judge delivered her ruling without drama. "The court denies the petition for grandparent visitation at this time," she said. "Furthermore, a temporary restraining order is granted, requiring Mrs. Patterson to maintain a distance of 100 yards from the children's daycare, residence, and school." Patricia cried out, "You can't do this!" The gavel came down hard. "After 6 months," the judge continued, "you may petition the court again, provided you complete a court-approved parenting boundaries education course, engage in regular therapy, and undergo a psychological evaluation." "A psychological evaluation?" Patricia shrieked. "I'm not crazy." "No one said you were," the judge replied coolly, "but your judgment is impaired." Outside the courtroom, Patricia lunged toward us, her attorney struggling to restrain her. "This isn't over," she hissed at me. "Blood means something." "No," I said calmly. "My children's safety means everything." Trevor looked at her then, really looked. "Mom," he said quietly, Every consequence you're facing right now is because of your choices. She stared at him like she'd never seen him before, and for the first time, she had no power left to take. The courthouse doors closed behind us with a sound that felt heavier than it should have. Not a slam, not a victory clang, just a muted thud, like something final settling into place. Outside, the late afternoon sun was bright in a way that felt almost inappropriate. People passed by, laughing, checking their phones, living ordinary lives while mine felt like it had just been dragged through a legal war zone and handed back to me with a list of conditions. Christine rested a hand on my shoulder. You did exactly what you needed to do. I nodded, but my body hadn't caught up yet. My hands were still shaking, not from fear anymore, but from the release of it. Across the steps, Patricia stood frozen as her attorney murmured urgently into her ear. Her flawless composure was gone. Mascara streaked down her cheeks in thin, angry lines. The woman who had always been so controlled now looked small, furious, exposed, cornered. This isn't over, she snapped when she caught my eye. Judges get things wrong all the time. I didn't respond. For the first time, I didn't feel the need to. Trevor stepped forward instead. His shoulders were squared, his voice steady. Mom, he said quietly, please stop. She stared at him like she didn't recognize the man in front of her. You let them do this to me, she whispered. You chose her. I chose my children, he replied, like I should have a long time ago. Her mouth twisted, searching for something cutting to say, but the words didn't come. Her attorney tugged gently at her arm, guiding her toward the parking lot. She didn't look back. The drive home was silent. Not awkward, not tense, just quiet. The kind of quiet that follows a storm. When we pulled into my apartment complex, Trevor turned off the engine but didn't get out right away. I'm sorry, he said finally. Not just for this, for everything I didn't see, everything I didn't stop. I studied him for a long moment. You were raised to believe this was normal, I said. That doesn't excuse it, but it explains it. He nodded slowly. I started therapy last week. That surprised me. I don't want to pass this on, he added, to them or to anyone. That matters, I said. When I walked inside, Lily and Mason came barreling toward me, arms wrapped tight around my legs. Did Grandma Patricia come? Lily asked innocently. My heart clenched. No, I said gently. She won't be coming for a while. Is she mad? Mason asked. I knelt down so we were eye level. She needs to learn some rules before she can be around us again. Like no secrets? Lily asked. My breath caught. Yes, I said softly. Especially no secrets. That night, after the kids were asleep, Vanessa came over with takeout and a bottle of wine we never actually opened. So, she said, kicking off her shoes, how does it feel to win against a woman who thinks boundaries are a personal insult? I smiled faintly. Bittersweet. That's normal, she said. You didn't want to defeat her. You wanted her to stop. I stared at the wall, thinking about the judge's words. Judgment impaired. Actions egregious. Boundaries violated. I keep wondering if she'll ever actually change, I admitted. Vanessa snorted. People like that don't change unless the pain of staying the same finally outweighs the comfort of control. And even then, not always. My phone buzzed. Monica. Little explorers placed on probation. Mandatory overhaul of pickup procedures. Director may lose license. I exhaled slowly. Good, Vanessa said when I showed her. Actions have consequences. The following weeks passed in a strange, fragile calm. The daycare implemented biometric check-ins and ID scans. Every pickup required a fingerprint and a photo. It felt excessive, but I welcomed it. Trevor and I communicated better than we had in years. Not because things were perfect, but because they were honest. No triangulation, no appeasement. Just logistics, decisions, and mutual respect. Patricia tried calling him 3 times one night. He didn't answer. She left voicemails, he told me later. Said I broke her heart, that she doesn't understand what she did wrong. And what did you say? I asked. Nothing, he replied. My therapist says silence is sometimes the only boundary people like her understand. That felt right. One evening, after the kids were asleep, I stood in their doorway watching them breathe. Lily curled around her stuffed bunny. Mason sprawled sideways like gravity was optional. The fight had been exhausting, terrifying, necessary. Some people mistake kindness for weakness. Some mistake boundaries for cruelty. Patricia had learned too late that love without respect is just possession in disguise. As I closed their door and headed to my room, I felt something unfamiliar settle over me. Not relief, peace, real peace. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. It always did. But tonight, my children were safe, and that was everything. Peace didn't arrive all at once. It didn't crash through my door with relief and resolution, didn't announce itself like a victory parade. Instead, it crept in slowly, quietly, so subtle I almost didn't trust it at first. The week after the court ruling, I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. A call, a surprise visit, a new accusation wrapped in legal language, but nothing came. The restraining order held. Patricia stayed away from the daycare, from my apartment, from the children's school. According to Monica, she'd enrolled in the mandatory boundaries course, but had already argued with the instructor about modern parenting being too permissive. That didn't surprise me. What did surprise me was how quickly my body began to unclench once the threat was no longer immediate. I slept through the night for the first time in months. I stopped checking my phone every time it buzzed. I started laughing again, real laughter, not the brittle kind that fills silence. Life found its way back into the small, ordinary moments. Lily lost her first tooth and insisted on writing the tooth fairy a letter explaining exactly where she'd like the money placed. Mason learned to ride his bike without training wheels, crashing twice and getting back up both times with a grin that said, falling didn't scare him nearly as much as stopping did. They were resilient, stronger than I'd given them credit for. One afternoon, a few weeks later, Trevor and I met for coffee while the kids were at a birthday party. He looked different. Not happier exactly, but clearer, like someone who'd finally cleaned a foggy mirror and was still adjusting to the reflection staring back at him. I had my third therapy session yesterday, he said, stirring his coffee absently. We talked about my mom. I raised an eyebrow. Only the third? He smiled faintly. Apparently I have a lot to unpack. That tracks. He sighed. I didn't realize how much of my life was shaped around keeping her calm, making sure she didn't feel rejected or criticized or irrelevant. And now? I asked. Now I'm learning that her feelings aren't my responsibility, he said slowly. And they never were. I nodded. That's a hard lesson. She left me another voicemail last night, he added. Said she doesn't understand what she did wrong, that the judge misunderstood her intentions. And what do you think? I asked. I think intent doesn't erase impact, he replied. And I think I spent too long confusing obedience with love. That was the moment I knew he was really changing. Not because he said the right thing, but because he said it without looking for reassurance. At home, the changes were quieter, but just as significant. Little Explorers underwent a full security overhaul. Biometric check-ins, mandatory ID scans, two-step verification for any changes to pick up authorization. Karen Foster was placed on administrative leave pending further review. It didn't undo what had happened, but it meant no other parent would get a call like the one that had shattered my sense of safety. That mattered. Vanessa came over one evening with Thai takeout and her usual unfiltered commentary. So, she said, settling onto my couch, how does it feel knowing the woman who tried to take your kids is now legally required to attend a boundaries class? I smiled into my glass of water. Satisfying and sad, both at the same time. She did this to herself, Vanessa said firmly. You didn't ruin anything. You stopped it from getting worse. I know, I said. I just wish Lily didn't ask questions. Vanessa softened. What does she ask? Why Grandma Patricia doesn't visit anymore, I said. Why she stopped calling. And what do you tell her? The truth, I replied. The age-appropriate version. That sometimes adults make unsafe choices and need time to learn how to do better. Vanessa. One night, long after the kids were asleep, I stood in the hallway outside their room, listening to the familiar rhythm of their breathing. Lily had kicked her blankets off again. Mason was curled around his dinosaur, one arm flung protectively over it like a lifeline. I thought how easily trust can be exploited, how quietly danger can walk through open doors, and how fiercely a mother will fight once she sees it clearly. Patricia, she was wrong. Love is not possession. Access is not entitlement. And family does not mean immunity from consequences. 2 months later, Monica called with an update. Patricia completed the boundaries course, she said. Barely. She's contesting the psychological evaluation requirement. I exhaled. Of course she is. The court won't budge, Monica continued. If she petitions again, she'll have to comply fully. No exceptions. Thank you, I said, for everything. You did the hardest part, Monica replied. You didn't back down. After I hung up, I sat at the kitchen table, watching the late afternoon sun stretch across the floor. I thought about how often women are told to be accommodating, to smooth things over, to keep the peace, even when that peace is built on silence and fear. I thought about how close I'd come to doing exactly that, and I was grateful I hadn't. That night, as I tucked Lily and Mason into bed, Lily looked up at me with solemn eyes. Mommy, she said, you always keep us safe, right? Always is a dangerous word, but I met her gaze and answered honestly. I will always try, I said, and I will always speak up when something isn't right. She smiled, satisfied with that. As I closed their door and headed to my own room, I felt it again. That quiet, steady sense of peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because the boundaries were clear. The lines were drawn, and this time, they were holding. Sometimes the hardest battles aren't fought in courtrooms or custody hearings. They're fought inside us against guilt, fear, and the pressure to stay silent for the sake of harmony. But protecting your children isn't cruelty, it's courage, and it's the only choice that ever truly mattered.